podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Red, your lunchtime catch-up on all things Liverpool on a Thursday, the 18th of July, on which I, Trev Downey, am your tremendously disappointing replacement for Mr. Dave Hendrick, who's taking a well-earned day to himself. Now, normally I know Dave begins with whatever story has really taken his fancy of late, but I am just returned from a gloriously football-free spell, so I have nothing really weighing me down or stressing me out. And I've been touching on stuff in the most tangential way possible in terms of the big stories, Lenny, Yarrow, we're all upset, and so on. And I'll be honest with you, the first thing that really took my fancy today was there was an article on AnfieldIndex.com which says, revealed the story behind Mohamed Salah's new haircut amid Liverpool return. Lots of people getting very excited about Mo's new look. I think a lot of shaven-headed, baldy types really delighted to see that, feeling seen themselves and represented. And of course, a lot of people then just talking about it because it's a thing to talk about. You know, it was famously one of the features of watching Mo Salah was this sort of shock of curly hair going at unnatural speeds and in unnatural directions before the net bulged. And we're hoping, as we read loads about Mo's return to training and how he's leading the field in terms of performance there, that we're going to have a wonderful season from this man. But the article is it's tremendously entertaining for several different reasons. I would like to lean into the fact that I cannot see an author here, so I apologise to whoever is responsible for it. But the gist of the article is all about how the impact of a haircut is more than just looks for footballers. And then there's all this kind of chat about psychology and, you know, sports psychologist Zeynep Atta from Sheffield Hallam University explaining that, quote, self-esteem and body image can affect performance in athletes, and so on and so forth. And this, so the gist of the rest of the article is this delightful trawl through how, and again I quote, this is a stylist, Cal Newsom. He says, a sharp, fresh haircut gives footballers the confidence that they will play better into their full potential. And I read on, more psychology, more chat about how feeling good helps you up your performance, even a paragraph about superstition and ritual in sport and how they are actually very important to Liverpool footballers. And if you know anything about the tradition of our club, the Anfield dressing room used to be an absolute bat's nest of crazy stuff happening. In one corner you had Bruce Grobler firing the ball across the dressing room to see if he could turn the light switch off with it, and until he did, he couldn't leave the room. Beside him was sitting Mark Lawrenson, who had to snap a pair of ties, which would go, for those of you who are very modern listeners, the elastic in socks wasn't always the best, so you used to have ties that would keep them over your shin pads, and he would have to snap a pair of those. And other people had their own places where they had to sit. Someone had to be the last to leave the room. Someone had to be the last to leave the tunnel, and so on and so forth. So they even lean in this article into that idea of superstition and ritual. At one point, there's a talk about how it's not just a physical transformation, but perhaps a reset of sorts. And again, more sort of pop psychology chat. Nowhere in this article does it mention the fact that Mo has a new hairline, which I find remarkable. I mean, half the population of Ireland has been over to Turkey to get a new thatch at some point. and they reappear into your life. One of my best pals emerged one day. I hadn't seen him for a while. I walked right past him because he went from being as bald as myself to having this sort of glorious pompadour on top of his noggin. Didn't look great, but he thought he was delighted with it. And a new set of delf between the lips as well. They're brand new, gleaming and shiny. And he'd grown a beard just to complete the transformation. I had no idea who this chap was. Sadly, and I hope this is not the case with Mo, he was heading back within a year because it didn't quite take. But we can all see the evidence either side. You don't need to be a conspiracy theorist to see the evidence that there's a little bit of addition around the Salah hairline. And I will be honest with you, all I want to see is more and more shots of Mo Salah where we can examine this, because we see him celebrating goal after goal. Now let's take a trawl around the usual sources for Dave. We will start with Anfield Watch. And top of the billing is Fabrizio Romano, our favourite lad who knows all the details about everything that ever happens and is definitely not a social media influencer, talking about the incredible proposal around Liverpool and Euro. And I honestly don't care. He's now a Manchester United player. All the best to him. Hopefully Big Gaz Southgate can really get the best out of Lenny. I don't see a problem there. To me, that sounds like it's going to be a match made in heaven. And, United will reap the rewards, or is that the whirlwind? Next heading, however, is about Mo Salah again. And it is phenomenal Liverpool star now tops the Reds pre-season leaderboard. Look, these are small things, and people used to get a bit bent out of shape when it was old Jimbo leading the charge. They tended to not like Jimbo very much, whereas I've always been a tremendous millenarian in terms of just liking the lad. You don't have to think he's the greatest footballer ever to play for Liverpool. I just like him. I like his attitude. I think he's just a good chap, and I'm hoping that he gets solidified into a coaching role. More of that very soon, where he is there at Brighton. But the Salah thing, apparently he performed a 6-minute race test with the rest of the players. This test is to see how much distance someone can cover over the 6-minute period. Salah, as it turns out, covered more than anyone else. It led first team coach Conal Murtagh, there's an Irishman if I've ever heard one, to call him phenomenal, as per The Athletic, knocking Sepp Vandenberg into second place, where he had been ruling the roost. Murtagh goes on to say it's important to show your mentality. He told Salah and Wataru Endo, show the lads how it's done as leaders in the group. Fair play. That's interesting. Anyway, look, for what it's worth, it's the kind of thing that lots of people will have opinions about. I always find these kind of things interesting. Now, of course, somehow there's a Liverpool connection to the Enzo Fernandez racism controversy, because guess what? Former Liverpool and Argentina star insists that Enzo Fernandez is, in quotes, a great guy. And you've got a picture of the, topically, given what we've been chatting about so far, bald Javier Mascherano looking back at me. I don't really want to read that, because I don't really need to hear it justified how somebody's a great lad. There's always someone who'll say somebody's a great lad, and maybe there's been some sort of misunderstanding, or maybe there's been an exaggeration, but it doesn't look good, does it? And honestly, I'd be very low tolerance on anything like that. I did want to touch briefly on the Thiago Alcântara story. I haven't listened to podcasts for about a week and a half, so I do not know if Dave has done this in detail. I just want to give my take on it. Apparently, he has had his return to Barcelona as a coach confirmed. And I think that's a lovely move for him. It makes perfect sense. He'll be at his most comfortable, and he gets a chance to do what he should do in some level of familiarity, with the, I suppose, adulation and respect that he deserves. It's an incredible disappointment to me, of all the many things that have been disappointing over the Klopp era. And I know we're not supposed to talk about those, but there are so many. Lost finals. Did you enjoy yourself? Did you have a nice day out? I hate that. I can't see that as anything other than a tremendous disappointment, and no amount of revisiting it and looking at the cumulative points totals and the amount of finals reached and stuff like that, none of that makes any difference to me. It's all about the trophy at the end of the day. So I get it hard to get too excited about that. And one of the biggest disappointments of the many disappointments, like lost finals, of the Klopp era for me, was not getting to see Thiago play at his brilliant best on a more regular basis. It was spirit crushing, really, in many ways, and could have made a massive difference, as we well know, to that trophy tally, if we're all being very honest. So it's lovely to see that this guy, who I have been berated for saying is possibly the best midfielder that I've seen play for Liverpool, because people just think that's daft. They say Graham Souness, they say Steven Gerrard. I saw both of those guys play for Liverpool because I'm old as dirt. And there was something about Thiago that made him more special as a footballer in terms of what he could do with it than almost anyone I'd seen. I fell under the spell of what that guy could do on the pitch in a way that I haven't since I was awestruck by Gerrard on a regular basis, or just goo-eyed looking at what Graham Souness was doing. So to be honest with you, I'm delighted for him, but I have a level of fondness for him that probably goes beyond anything that would be warranted by actual attainments, trophies and so on. And it's nice to see that he gets the opportunity to relaunch himself alongside Hansi Flick there at Bayern. Sorry, not Bayern. He was his former manager at Bayern. He's now at Barca as well. So the article here says Thiago can operate as a bridge between manager and club, someone who knows both very well, and importantly has had incredible success with both. So it does look like it's a little bit of a match made in heaven for him. So delighted for him, just as I am for any of the Reds who have done well over the summer. But I am so ready for tournament talk to be over. It's incredibly draining. We see, as we look around, the ongoing rumbling chat about Trent and Madrid. It could be spoof, it could be real. We don't know. Nobody really knows the truth there. And until we see some definite statement one way or the other, we're not going to know. The other one that's kind of weighing on my mind a little bit is the Caoimhín Kelleher thing. I guess it shouldn't, but I was so impressed by the extended run that he had that you resent seeing him play for somebody else. You resent losing a person of that talent, especially when Ali is prone to an injury or two. But how can you keep a guy like that who can play first team football happy as a support act? And he said as much himself. And apparently he's been urged, it says here on Anfield Watch, by the Ireland manager, the new Ireland manager, Mr. Hallgrimsson, who I think it's fair to say most of us over here were tremendously underwhelmed by the appointment of. Apparently he's been ordered to move on and establish himself as a regular starter so he can keep his Ireland place. Now, how heavily that weighs on Caoimhín is another thing altogether. Let's take a look, can we then, at This Is Anfield and look at what's going on over there. They lead today in terms of the opinion section with the John Heitinga story. I think Dave mentioned on the 4 reasons for optimism one yesterday. I'd like to just look at this Johnny Heitinga thing, as it is causing a little bit of a kerfuffle given his Everton career. He's 40 years of age, Johnny Heitinga, and had obviously been working alongside David Moyes at West Ham. He spent 7 years coaching at Ajax, coming through the youth ranks. He became caretaker manager there and then moved on to West Ham in 2023 and was assistant manager to Moyes at that place. Sam Milne's article is the one that highlights this stuff and gives you the info on the background on it. But with Moyes moving on, he has also moved on as well and is joining Liverpool as an assistant coach. And listen, this is quite interesting. There is a little bit of background here about how he rose to become Ajax caretaker. and his work with the academy and all that kind of stuff. So absolutely worth a read there. The comparisons with Pep Linders, just in terms of the stepping stone aspect of that. What are his characteristics as a coach? We're told he's only relatively retired from football, so he's a passionate guy, emotionally involved with what the players are doing and all the rest of it. Look, this is a new team. This new team of coaching and management, this is going to have to bond together in its own way. That's just how these things work. It's going to be very interesting for us to keep an eye on it and see how it glues together, because in the middle of that, we're getting used to all these new names, which, in the past, we become very familiar with the likes of Kornmeyer and the rest of them. And, you start to they build their own little small mythos. So obviously with Corny, it was that he was like mini Kloppo. With Peter Krawietz, for me, it was always like he had buried someone under his patio that morning. These little things they become characters that you're interested in. They obviously then have a very much important job to do. And I'm not going to listen. Anyone who's going to sit here in judgment over Johnny Heitinga as a coach and tell you what he's good at, what he's not good at, I think they might be a little bit exaggerating. But there's some people will know these kind of levels of things. I would not ever pretend to. But like I say, let's look at some of these new names. The club put out that tweet yesterday at 3 p.m. to say that it was official and that Johnny Heitinga will be joining. And it is, like I say, a little bit of a controversial appointment given his Everton past, but he will be joining with, and here again, some of these names, Sipke Hulshoff, who is the lead physical performance coach, Ruben Peters, and then the first team individual development coach, Aaron Briggs. So Hulshoff, Peters and Briggs, and now Heitinga adding to the Arne Slot team. It's going to be interesting to see how quickly that team itself gels together, because their success at doing that is going to be very much a factor in whether our team's success in gelling together happens quickly or not. I'm excited by all this newness in a way that I did not think I would be. I think an awful lot of people were sad and disappointed and brokenhearted that the Klopp era was coming to an end. Of course I was as well, but I'll be honest, if a thing is over, a thing is over, and so I couldn't wait for the new thing to start. The fact there was a protracted period before we even got to meet the new coach and hear him talk, I think left a lot of us saying, let's just get on with it. And that's where I am now, because I'd sort of lost the excitement level, but I'm back there now. All these new faces arriving. This will lead to a new dynamic, new people for us to get used to and get interested in and find out about. And lads, hopefully some new footballers, because I know a certain Dave Davis is going to be doing his nut about the lack of transfer activity. I am myself, having been a recent convert to transfer land. We want to be able to report to you on that show about all the deals that Liverpool are doing. But as Dave said yesterday on this very show, probably not the time to have a meltdown just yet. Whether you're high on Euro or low on Euro, it doesn't really matter, does it? It's not. It hasn't happened. We move on. More deals don't happen than do. That's just the nature of things. The teams can't come to an agreement. They move on to the next club and they manage to settle some sort of an agreement there. That's more often the case, that things don't work out than they do. And we're probably as well off not being privy to every little move that we don't get made. But that said, I'm as absolutely sort of impatient for a new squad to be put together as anybody else. Again, to echo Dave from yesterday, probably the 18th of July is not the time to be firing all your SpongeBob toys out of your pram. But I might be starting to pick them up. I'll be honest with you, we'll get into next week. And then if we get into the last week of July, I will certainly have a throwing motion prepared, because you do want these things done as early as possible. You don't, like, games will start to get played soon, but The squad is only coming back in dribs and drabs. And as I think our own Steve said on his Twitter channel, or Twitter page there, you know, it's probably irresponsible in a way to be making any moves before you see who comes back from tournament football. So if we take that as the starting point, it's not that long ago. I mean, seems like only a few days, because it is only a few days that I was sitting in a comfortable chair watching England's sad exit at the Euro. So we have to wait until everybody's back, see who can we count on and who can we not count on. Slot himself is going to be making assessments about who he's liking the look of and who he's not liking the look of. There is actually a very interesting article somewhere. I'll see if I can find it before we wrap up here, about the impressions that are being made by different people on Arne in terms of the early training sessions. So when you think about it that way, it makes perfect sense that there's going to be action happening now rather than a little bit earlier. I have one more article here that has just popped up onto the Anfield Index website here, and it says, report double exit set to force Liverpool into the transfer market. This seems like a good place for us to wrap up our show for today. So let's have a look at it. The article is headed, Liverpool transfers, strategic decisions ahead amid double exit. Rising pressure on FSG to act. Who are we talking about here? Let me just have a look through it. Okay, so Kelleher's one. Yeah, and they're talking there about the Irish manager saying, and quote, of course, especially when he showed everyone that he can play at the highest level, it would be a shame if he's not playing regularly after he has already shown everyone how good he is, the level he played at. Okay. I'm already worried about that lad, because he's repeating phrases within 2 lines. So Queeveen's one. Who's the other double exit? Adrian? Losing both Adrian and potentially Kelleher would leave a significant 5. Okay, right. So we do know that we have at least one likely lad who can step into that breach in terms of returning to the club. But we do. That is a fair point. If Queeveen leaves on the back of Adrian, no matter what way you rated Adrian, it is probably likely that the club will have to act. But, you know, we do have a lot of good young goalkeepers on the books, so let's see what happens there. And because that was a little bit of a damn squib in terms of who they were talking about with the double exit, I am going to go to a Liverpool News Now website and just have a look and see one of these aggregators what the lads are saying, what kind of headlines. First headline we've got, exceptional Liverpool player is not training with the first team under Arne Slot as he's set to leave. Right, this will be our last one for today because I like this. I had looked at it earlier on in prep. So it's talking about how Arne Slot's getting used to his new players. This is by James Brooke, by the way, over on Rousing the Cop. And it's talking about how a lot of the squad haven't returned, but that he has been impressed by Vandenberg. And Curtis Jones has come out and said that the return of Cade Gordon to first team training is a tremendous thing. It talks about how Arne is starting to whittle down his squad ahead of the tour to America. And then we have a paragraph saying Reece Williams omitted from first team training. It goes on to say here that Fabio Carvalho could still leave the club, but for others it's also clear that the comfort of Klopp's time in charge will bring an end to their stay on Merseyside. This perhaps applies to no one more than centre-back duo Nat Phillips and Reece Williams. Please, just let Nat Phillips go. Will you please release Nat Phillips from the hell that he is in at Liverpool? It's just not fair. Let the lad go. Let Reece Williams go. Go and have a career somewhere. Go and play ball somewhere on a regular basis. It feels like we've got golden handcuffs around those two poor bastards for too long. It's just not right. You know, It says here Klopp called Williams exceptional for the work he did in helping Liverpool salvage third place finish, and Phillips was also a favourite. Yeah, okay, but it's a new era, and these guys, if it's ever going to happen, it has to happen now, and you can't see them featuring in the first team, even though tragically we don't have Lenny Yoro in the centre half situation. But it does go on to talk about Williams. He's 23 and he's probably out of chances, and it looks like he's not training with the first team now. So hopefully Reece Williams and Nat Phillips will go on and get the moves that they deserve, and we'll see. Hopefully David will be back in your ears tomorrow, but if he's not, I'll have some slightly more controversial stories and slightly more let's say nailed down opinions for you on that one. But we'll leave it at that for today. In terms of the podcast, go and check it out. You know yourself what you expect. I'm not going to do that part of it. I will tomorrow if needs be. But I wanted to get something into your ears for today in the absence of Dave's usual dulcet tones. So from me, Trev Downey, this is the Daily Red, and we'll speak to you soon.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at anfieldindex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index, and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
Sports Social Podcast Network.